Okay. Ay.
There's a man from Orange County named Steve Rocco. He's a politician, an activist, a battler of secret organizations. He's a conspiracy theorist who's devoted much of his life to fighting a shadowy cabal called the Partnership. Rocco has written extensively about the Partnership in his book called ROCCO, Behind the Orange Curtain, Secret Chronicles and Public Record Accounts of Corruption, Murder, and Scandal of Corporate and Political California, written by America's premier legal technician. In it, he describes the Partnership as a consortium of corrupt co-conspirators within the legislative, judicial, and economic halls of Orange County. Steve Rocco has spent 40 years investigating the Partnership. It all began in 1980, when Rocco was arrested for shoplifting 4 rolls of Kodak film and a sausage from an Albertsons supermarket. This arrest, he says, was set up by the Partnership. Rocco has accused the CEO of Albertsons of trying to kill him. He says that he hired an assassin to hit him with a truck and that he sent a man wielding a power saw after him. Steve Rocco hosted a self-produced public access show from 1993 until 1994, which focused on exposing the Partnership as well as injustice and corruption within Orange County. Okay, so obviously, Steve Rocco is a highly eccentric person. But if that's all there was to this story, then it wouldn't be interesting. Now would it? No, you see, the tale of Steve Rocco is the ultimate absurdist underdog story. That's right, you heard that right. The ultimate absurdist underdog story. It's about a dissident, a watchdog, who fought against the bureaucratic system from within. This is the story of Steve Rocco versus the Orange Unified School Board.
I said jail time,
Mr. Rocco, did you vote yes or no?
You don't touch me. You understand that? What? You touch me.
You know what? I'm going to recess this meeting.
Thank you.
If you're bored, you're welcome to leave, Mr. Ortega. Someday tell us about your brother who was employed here.
Mr. Rocco, I think you need to be quiet, okay?
No, I think I need to keep going.
You know, you're not here for the children.
I'm not?
Don't personalize it. Now you have employees. Now you're talking about a brother of mine who passed away.
Wasn't
you
it of
have no
drugs?
heart?
Mrs. Nichols?
Wasn't it
Okay,
of drugs?
enough.
Mrs. Nichols, I
Yes,
would like
Mrs.
to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This story begins in 2004, after Steve Rocco, inexplicably, became a publicly elected government official. The race was for the Area 6 seat on the Orange Unified School Board. Rocco won with 54% of the vote, 24,749 votes in total. He defeated Phil Martinez, a PTA president with the backing of the teachers union, despite the fact that he didn't campaign at all. Steve Rocco didn't even print out a flyer. All he did was ride his bike to the registrar of voters' office and fill out a small form. After Steve Rocco's victory, things started to get even weirder. And that's because no one knew how to find him. No one knew how to contact him and tell him that he won. He didn't communicate with anyone for a month. Not the registrar of voters' office, or the school board, or journalists who visited his home in hopes to get an exclusive on the man that they dubbed the mystery trustee. When the teachers union sent him a congratulatory letter, it was returned unopened, with refused written on the envelope. Speculation about just who the hell he was intensified. Hardly anyone even knew what he looked like, except for a handful of his neighbors. A member of the school board told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "You hear things because people are desperately trying to find some info on him. I heard he rides bikes. He likes garage sales. He hangs out at a 7-Eleven. I don't know if any of that is true." Then nearly a month later, Rocco finally revealed himself by calling into a local radio show and promising that he would attend his December 8th swearing-in ceremony. Steve Rocco did in fact attend his swearing-in ceremony, and he did so in a big way.
Living in a time of secret organizations, we're living in a time of corruption, and mostly a time of dictatorship. Aiding and abetting the drug and human cargo trade is only part of the problem. You change things here, you change things nationwide. The world is watching. I am and have always been the anti-corruption candidate.
In front of an audience of parents, teachers, and Orange Unified School District officials, Rocco delivered a 5-minute rant about the partnership.
The question should be not as who is Rocco, but what is the partnership? This mentions at least 20 to 30 partnership members. This is an expose, not a manifesto. Expose is a French word, not a Russian word.
He explained that his job as an Orange Unified School Board trustee and fighting the partnership was one and the same.
Doing my job as trustee and fighting organized crime are one and the same. You think that you're in heaven, you're in hell.
During his debut on the school board, Steve Rocco cleared some things up. He attributed his month-long absence from the spotlight and his lack of a campaign to his parents being kidnapped.
And one of the main reasons why I didn't run this summer was because both my parents were kidnapped this summer. They couldn't leave.
He also paid tribute to his father in Italian and vowed to continue to fight the partnership.
Io ti amo te caro papà. 9 di novembre era la prima giornata che hai perso questa guerra qua, dello partnership. Tutto che io faccio è per te.
After footage of Steve Rocco's swearing-in ceremony circulated, some speculated that he was a performance artist, a troll. Some went even further, theorizing that he was Andy Kaufman in disguise, or back from the dead.
Well, let's look at some other news. And Steve Rocco, who was elected, to the surprise of many, to the Orange Unified School District Board, actually showed up for his swearing-in, Gustavo.
My colleague Nick Scow reported it last week, and it was really a bizarre spectacle because once again, Rocco, in his previous interview with the LA Times, the only thing he talked about was this vague conspiracy. And in this case, he once again, instead of speaking about school issues, he talked about the conspiracy. And in fact, the Weekly were speculating that there is no real Steve Rocco. In fact, that Steve Rocco is the late performance artist Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman was a comedian known for his anti-comedy performance art, often playing bizarre characters in order to provoke a reaction from audiences. Someone even made a website called andykaufmanlives.com, but at a press conference held in his lawyer's office, Steve Rocco denied any rumors of him being or associating with Andy Kaufman in any way. Now, if you're asking me for my opinion, none of this was a stunt. Steve Rocco was, and still is, most definitely insane. This wasn't an act or performance art. And that's the beauty of this story. What happened was that nearly 25,000 people voted an unstable person into a seat in public office, which he went on to occupy for the next 4 years. So you might be wondering, what was Steve Rocco like as a school board trustee? Well, let me tell you, he was an agent of chaos.
I'm against drugs, and I probably have lost more to the drug situation than anybody else. I've lost relatives, I've lost friends, I've lost my job, I've been set up. But how do you find out about that? You don't. You know, and just think about the newspapers in the past couple of months. In the last couple of months, I've been 2 death attempts, stalking. The police reports are right here. Have you heard anything? Of course you haven't. And it all deals with the drug situation. You know, I like to think that somewhere, my father's directing me on this. And the more I thought about it and the more that I investigated the matter, I discovered that my father's passing wasn't just an act of God. It was pre-planned, it was premeditated, it had a political agenda, and it's more than malpractice. My father was murdered. My father was murdered by low pressure poisoning or an overdose. Your drugstore, the big ones, Albertsons, believe me, the CEO, son of Albertsons, set me up. Have you ever heard anything? Have you read the story? No. Set him up. And he's dead.
Okay, so there's a couple reasons why Steve Rocco won. Okay, so here's how the ballot looked. As you can see, under Phil Martinez's name, it says Orange County Park Ranger. Under Steve Rocco, it says school teacher/writer. Typically, in these low ballot races for local office, voters aren't too well informed about who their candidates are. So in this case, many people chose Steve Rocco simply because his designation said school teacher, which they assumed was a better fit for the school board than a park ranger. Here's the thing though, Steve Rocco has never been a school teacher. He holds teaching credentials, as well as a total of 8 associate's degrees from Santa Ana College, but has never utilized any of them professionally. In other words, he submitted a false ballot designation, which surprisingly doesn't have very many consequences.
So if I said I was a brain surgeon,
Right.
And I put that down, would that go down?
Sure, but now here's where it kicks in, is there's a 10-day review period. So people that know you or may not know that you're a brain surgeon could challenge that designation.
They call you up and they say, Smoller's not a brain surgeon.
They do all the time.
And what do you do?
Well, we refer them to a court. So for example, they could file a case in court, it's an emergency hearing, and a judge at that point would make the determination based on evidence. If you came in and were able to prove that you were a brain surgeon, then the court could likely rule in your favor.
Another reason people voted for him was as a protest against his teachers union-backed opponent, a vote against the status quo.
Oh, Chris Reed, I think you went on record last time we talked saying you voted for Steve Rocco.
Let me say that you three sound like you're part of the partnership. Well,
Chris, I told you never to speak of that on the air.
Well, I'm rapidly regretting my vote for the guy. Obviously, I projected my hopes that he would be an anti-establishment figure onto this blank slate, and now as the slate is filled in, he's not turning out to be what I hoped.
One voter called him a breath of fresh air and explained that she voted for him because she felt as though he would not just be another teachers union puppet. She remarked that she considered him the lesser of two evils. Another member of the community declared, quote, "I voted for Rocco, and I'd vote for him again." The same person wrote a letter to a local paper to say that he would have chosen Bozo the Clown over Rocco's opponent, Phil Martinez.
They're looking at a guy who wears a stocking cap and dark sunglasses at evening meetings and rails on about conspiracies is going to be a breath of fresh air. But a lot of folks really saw him as a kind of an anti-candidate to somebody else that was they thought would be expected and knee-jerk. And he's going to be fascinating to watch because so far we don't really know what he thinks about education.
School board trustees are publicly elected officials who work together as a board of representatives overseeing a school district. Together they meet and vote on matters such as the school district's yearly budget, personnel hirings and firings, student expulsions, and things like whether to approve a field trip or not. Typically, the school board meets twice a month for 2 evening sessions. First is a closed session meeting, followed by a regular session meeting, which is open to the public. When Steve Rocco became a member of the school board, he made it clear that he would not attend closed session meetings, believing that the public should be involved in every discussion.
I made it a point from the very first time I was elected not to go to closed sessions so I could tell you the truth. So nobody could hold me back.
A true transgressor, Rocco refused to do other things like give his fingerprints or photograph for district records.
So, confidentiality, it's a word. I really believe it, and I believe it for myself too. I haven't given them my phone number because I've been warned. What happens here? You know where it winds up? It winds up in a directory.
As a school board trustee, Steve Rocco could be best described as an unintentional nuisance to his colleagues. The fact was that he had no real effect on policy decisions within the school district, since his vote only counted as 1 out of 7. To all of these stiff school board members and PTA attendees, Steve Rocco was their worst nightmare, an unqualified pest who wasted their valuable time and derailed their meetings. But from the lens of an outside observer, like me, Steve Rocco's conduct could only be described as hilarious. What must have messed with the other board members' minds was that they knew Steve Rocco was just as legit as them. Look, there's no doubt in my mind that Steve Rocco wholeheartedly believed that he was exposing the partnership's trail of deceit and corruption by railing against it at these school board meetings. So it's not surprising that soon Rocco started to believe that his colleagues on the school board were members of the partnership and that they were trying to kill him. He felt particularly unsafe with the seating arrangement, placing him in close proximity to his two most ardent detractors, Wes Putzma and John Artiga.
Well, 3 minutes. If you look in that section over there, there's no high school students. If you look over there, there's no board member. If you look over there, there's no board member. And that's because fear. That's what you inspire. Well, you sit here and you try to do your job, and you don't know when a fist is going to come in front of your face. You don't know when somebody's going to hover over you. Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Is there anybody here who thinks that I would be safe sitting in that chair or that chair? And I asked way back in December, that's the seat that should go to me. Take a look, there's nobody there. Nobody can come at me. You're safe. So now I get to choose between either thug number 1 or thug number 2. So who wins? I guess it's thug number 2. I don't know what I'm going to do for protection. I can't carry a gun and I don't want to. So I don't know how I'm going to protect myself. You're inspiring fear. You're a bad leader. This is voodoo. This is a voodoo unified school district, and it's because of you. Huh?
One day, Rocco appeared at a city council meeting, claiming that he was the victim of a politically motivated beating.
Mr. Rocco, welcome.
Our investigation hasn't shown that any one of you has any problems with partnership. And I'm talking about organized crime. This administration right here. You have nothing to worry about. We've done a good investigation. There's nothing here on you. But I would seriously have you reconsider your relationship with the Orange Unified School District, because that is another matter altogether. I'm liking the officer, which is in the back there, because he provides protection. And protection is very important because things like assaults by other board members happen in your city. Well, actually by 2 of them. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but this isn't chocolate on my face. And I was told not to take it off until photographers from the police department came by. Pretty much my life was threatened today again, and I bled from head to foot. I'm in pain right now. My nose is swollen, I can't breathe, and I hurt. My other clothes are at home, but they're all bloody, just like this glove right here and just like my face is. The people that attacked me this morning are in jail. They were caught. We were told who did this. I would seriously consider any sort of relationship you have with them in the immediate future. And as far as the police, we welcome them because it's not safe in the boardroom and it's not safe out of the boardroom.
According to the Santa Ana Police Department, although it was true that Rocco was assaulted, one of the suspects was a juvenile, and it was unlikely that the attack was politically motivated. After Steve Rocco's fulminating speech at the city council meeting, his sidekick/investigator, Evan Harris, stepped up to the podium and attempted to present his findings about the partnership.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harris, you are next.
Good evening. My name is Evan Harris. I do investigations for myself, Mr. Rocco, and check facts. I've done them for a partnership in the past. I was prevented from delivering the partnership information.
Okay, Mr. Harris, you're going to need to stick to an item that's under the jurisdiction of the City Council.
This is a non-agenda item.
It needs to be under the jurisdiction of something that the City Council can make a decision on.
Okay, well, I will present it and you tell me if it's under your... Okay, I was prevented from delivering the partnership information at the Unified School District. The supposed Rocco menace is the message of the people.
Okay, Mr. Harris, again, that is not something that's under the jurisdiction of the City Council.
Okay.
You know what, sir? You need, very good. Thank you very much, then.
Thank you for your censorship.
Thank you.
Sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about. You need to be sorry.
Evan Harris aided Rocco in investigating the partnership and often showed up to meetings to speak on Rocco's behalf. Steve Rocco sat on the board for 2 years before his colleagues finally had enough of his antics.
Please direct your comments to Orange Unified School District.
Let me do this, or you're not.
I'm not going to let you do it unless it as regard to Orange Unified School District.
Excuse me for your guarantee. Let me get through this, all right? Let me
get to the portion with which pertains to Orange Unified School District.
San Juan Capistrano wrote a...
First, they tried to silence him. Then they tried to get rid of him for good.
We care about our employees. We care about our community. We are done dealing with this kind of behavior, and I'm hopeful that Mr. Rocco will choose his words more carefully when he is in public session and doesn't breach this violation.
The board voted 4-1 to censure him on October 12, 2006, after he stated that he would fire a controversial principal during a public meeting. After being censured, Rocco stayed on the board. However, he was no longer permitted to place items on the agenda unless it was co-sponsored by another board member. Aided by an open government advocacy group called Californians Aware, he later sued the school district for violating his freedom of speech. The lawsuit was quickly thrown out of court. Rocco and his co-plaintiffs were ordered to pay the school district $80,000 in attorney's fees. In the end, it was Richard McKee, the president of Californians Aware, who footed the bill. In an interview, McKee called it the price of living out his principles. After successfully censuring him, they tried to drum up community support for a recall. A political recall is the process by which a public official is removed from office before his or her term is over. This attempt to oust Rocco was performed in conjunction with members of the PTA, the school board, and the teachers union. Together, they formed the committee to recall Rocco. During an Orange Unified School Board meeting, a representative of the committee handed Steve Rocco intent to recall papers, generating applause from members of the audience.
And in furtherance of supporting that community, I am tonight presenting to Mr. Rocco a notice of intent to recall. I would love to see the R word, recall.
Thank you, Mr. Rosas.
The committee to recall Rocco required 10,000 valid signatures from the school district's registered voters in order to qualify for a ballot recall. The petition to recall Steve Rocco began to circulate on June 29, 2007. If they wanted to force a recall election, they had until September 21, 2007 to collect the signatures. But first, some backstory, because I still haven't told you exactly what led to the recall. It begins with Rocco's sole supporter on the board, trustee Rick Ledesma. Rick Ledesma was the only board member to vote against censuring Rocco. He sometimes sided with Rocco, and Rocco sometimes sided with him. So here's what happened. On March 8, 2007, Rick Ledesma aided Rocco in placing an item onto the agenda called the Partnership in Orange County and the Orange Unified School District. Yesterday, today, and who knows? An examination by Evan Harris at the unholy trilogy of government, corporation, and education. Although he was still censured by the board, Rick Ledesma's support was all that Rocco needed to speak uninterrupted for 30 minutes about the partnership in a long-winded diatribe that included lines like, "This district loves pedophiles." After his presentation, members of the public castigated Rocco for wasting the community's time and taxpayers' money.
2 years ago, our community became the laughingstock when we voted Mr. Rocco into office. We have sat quietly while he rants incoherently about things that are unrelated to running the school district. He is not here for the benefit of the children or our community. Quite frankly, Mr. Rocco, we've had enough of your nonsense.
You have spent 22 months making political remarks, placing dolls, Coke bottles, signs, and pictures before you on the dais, and making a mockery out of being a board member. Mr. Rocco, most people in the community think that you're crazy, but you are unprofessional, and in most cases, you are wrong.
Rick Ledesma was caught in the crossfire by those who admonished him for aiding Rocco by co-sponsoring his agenda item. Some suggested that there should be a recall effort launched against Ledesma as well, but that never happened. And neither did the Rocco recall. By the September 21, 2007 deadline, they only accumulated around 5,000 signatures, half of what they needed. So the target date was extended to December 5th, but they still didn't have enough signatures by then, so their attempt to recall Rocco was officially abandoned. They failed to garner community support due to a lack of interest from the public. Some speculated that the stakes were just too low. As one political observer commented, in the end it seemed that the recall effort was more of a personal matter for the board members than a genuine concern to the community.
I'd like to thank you for a 2-year dictatorship, which was wonderful. I'd like to thank you for the recall, which was the 3 women board members up here. And I'd like to thank you for the 2 attempts on my life, which the media didn't cover. It didn't matter anyway, because the recall didn't go through. The people have already spoken. If you did not want me here, you had your chance to get rid of me. Okay? You had your chance. Let's give you another chance in November.
However, they did eventually gerrymander him out of his trustee area, so he couldn't run for re-election. He was redistricted into Trustee Area 7, which his sole supporter on the school board, Rick Ledesma, represented. Rocco declared that he wouldn't run against Ledesma. Ledesma was later re-elected to the board as its president. Okay, so here's the best part. During his final days on the school board, Steve Rocco was arrested for stealing a bottle of ketchup, and the case went to Superior Court. On September 29, 2008, Rocco stole a half-empty 14-ounce bottle of Heinz ketchup from a dining area outside of the cafeteria at Chapman University. He was detained by campus security, who witnessed him conceal it in a shopping bag and put it into his bicycle basket before speeding off. Rocco claimed that he took the bottle in order to recycle it, but that the security guards planted the bottle into his bag on behalf of his enemies in order to frame him and discredit him as a public official. Steve Rocco was cited on a charge of petty theft and released after being warned to stay away from Chapman University. According to school officials, the bottle was only worth $1.20, but Rocco declined to stay away from the university and asked for a trial by jury, and his request was granted. By April of 2009, a 3-day petty theft trial held in Superior Court began. Rocco's signature look, a watch cap and dark sunglasses, violated the court's dress code, so he showed up sporting more appropriate attire. Members of the public criticized the district attorney's office for what they saw as a waste of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money over a half-empty bottle of ketchup. The DA said that although they offered Rocco a plea bargain, he insisted on his right to a jury trial. During the trial, Rocco represented himself in court, testifying on his own behalf in the witness stand. He maintained his innocence and argued that he was set up by political enemies. He also issued 50 subpoenas to 50 supposed witnesses, including an unspecified Heinz representative, all of which were thrown out by the judge. The jury deliberated for around 3 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict. They found him guilty of misdemeanor petty theft, and he was convicted on Thursday, April 15, 2009. Superior Court Judge Jackie C. Brown sentenced Rocco to 2 years of informal probation. He was ordered to pay $200 in fines and told to stay 100 meters away from Chapman University. This was a scam from day one, Rocco said outside of court. He called his trial one-sided and a joke. Rocco vowed to appeal the sentence. In 2011, he sought a retrial, but his request was denied. Steve Rocco continues to be involved in politics to this day. Surprisingly, people still vote for him. Steve Rocco possesses this unshakable ability to constantly disrupt the Orange County political establishment. He's like a permanent fixture that they just can't get rid of. And God bless him for it, because without him, who else could the people of Orange County depend on to keep them safe from the partnership?
As of today, I've gotten 158,000 votes in all the elections that I've been in. You're not going to vote for me because I'm Vietnamese. You're not going to vote for me because I'm Mexican or Latino, because I'm not. You're not going to vote for me because I'm a Democrat or Republican, because I'm not. You're not going to vote for me because I'm an illegal alien or because I'm a natural-born citizen, because I'm not. I'm also not a lawyer, I'm one of you. You want change, you want things done, you want a cleaner county, then you vote for me and we get the job done. If you choose in the future to vote for somebody else, do it. But this time, vote for yourself.
Okay, quick updates. These videos take a long time to make, as you know. Months go by. So, if you're curious about what I'm up to, I have a Twitter, Instagram, and a subreddit. All links can be found in the description box below. Otherwise, stay tuned for more weird stories.